aren't as vulnerable to crossing over, because that car is very much telling everybody that there's a pursuit going on, that they're coming code 3. So in that respect, it's safer for the officers that are pursuing the car.
Right.
We're hearing that he's on the 101 now near downtown Los Angeles. So
downtown Los Angeles, perhaps heading, so that would be westbound on the 101, passing through downtown Los Angeles. Northbound, pardon me. Well, it's south. In that area where it looks like it's going west, but it's technically northbound. So this is interesting because we're seeing that the vehicle is at the 4 level and actually hitting some traffic. So now the car is going slower. Now, I know you as the viewers are used to seeing a couple of black and whites pursuing a plain vehicle. This is a black and white with the lights on, driving on the 101. That's what we're looking at. And there's another car right behind it.
And imagine how confusing this is if you're in a motorist and you see a black and white chasing a black and white. This would be really, I think it would be upending to a person who's driving on the 101 at this hour. And we're seeing a little bit of traffic. It's 10:11 right now. And, a lot of folks still maybe getting home after a weekend, coming back into the basin. So this is what we're watching here. Northbound on the 101, this black and white, which authorities are saying was stolen. The person behind that wheel traveling at speeds of 70 miles per hour. We've already heard from retired LAPD Sergeant Michael Serra talking about the fact, we're hearing now 110 north. Once again, these are very heavily traveled freeways here in Southern California. But the issue being what might be in that vehicle. We know that he has access to scanners, perhaps a gun, bulletproof vest. All of this will make it difficult to apprehend this person if he has any kind of a sinister plot afoot.
Now, Sergeant, I know that you're not a lawyer, but what does this do to the penalties against this guy once police finally catch up with him?
Well, he's definitely going to be filed on for GTA, avoiding and resisting arrest, reckless driving, unauthorized code 3, which there are vehicle codes against too. So it does mount up. And one thing that a lot of people don't understand is that this pursuit has to be totally documented from beginning to end. In other words, all these tapes have to be pulled, and officers have to sit down and write up exactly the route of this vehicle, what was done, any laws that were broken, whether they be misdemeanors, vehicle codes, or felonies. And it all has to go down in the documentation for the purposes of filing on this person in court.
Right. And we need to tell you about a correction. At what point we thought perhaps he transitioned onto the 110, but now we understand that he has remained on the 101 freeway, going northbound through Hollywood. He is, as you see there, running into a little bit of traffic. Perhaps, as Laura mentioned, not too surprising on a Sunday night after, things like the shows in Hollywood get, people get out of the shows and whatnot and heading home. But again, if you're just joining us now at 10:14 in the evening, we are watching this black and white with the lights on traveling through Hollywood, because that is allegedly a stolen West Covina PD vehicle.
And if he stays on this route, he'll go through Hollywood, eventually through the San Fernando Valley, and then he has another ways that he could go. He could take the 134, he could take the 405, but right now, all we know, according to authorities, is that this black and white was stolen from West Covina PD, traveling speeds up to 70 miles per hour on surface streets at times, now back on the 101, heading north, weaving in and out of traffic. It's now about 10:14. Folks, maybe, as you just pointed out, Susan, getting out from commitments this evening, maybe going to the movies or other recreational things, and headed home, only to find out that there is a black and white leading other authorities on a chase. And authorities concerned tonight about what might be in that vehicle, gun, perhaps in that vehicle, as well as access to the scanner. So This makes it very difficult for authorities who want this to end in a peaceful manner.
Because, of course, the communication between the units is so critical, because oftentimes we've seen it many, many times where the police try to figure out where the guy is going so that they can either block access or block access to other traffic, so that they are in a better position where they might be able to use the pit maneuver or what have you in order to get this pursuit stopped and taken care of. Now we have a situation where the guy in the car may actually have access to that kind of communication.
They're moving quickly there right now, so it's like they picked up speed. Which is remarkable because there's a fair amount of traffic. But
well, again, thanks to lights and sirens, perhaps people are realizing we need to move to the right to get out of the way. We did hear that there are, of course, different tactical frequencies which allow the police to communicate more freely, or hopefully more freely, with the idea that maybe the guy does not have that information. But there was some reports on the police scanners themselves that suggested the guy was screaming in the radio, so that they had some information that he was not a quiet guy in the car.
And maybe agitated,
He's
perhaps.
agitated, correct.
Yes. Well, this is the Cahuenga Pass right here, which is usually filled with traffic, even at this hour. So I guess if there is a silver lining to all this, there had been some rain predicted. I think it's still fairly dry out there. I haven't heard of any indication that the freeway's wet, because that would certainly make it more dangerous. And if you're in law enforcement, and join me in this, please, Michael, the big objective out of all this is that no one will be hurt, including the suspect, and certainly not innocent civilians who were just trying to get home on a Sunday night.
Well, that's it. And that's the officer's main intent, is to keep all people out of harm's way, and including the suspect involved. You know, a successful apprehension is to apprehend him peacefully, uneventfully, and not have anybody hurt, including officers. But it's going to be complicated, because the further out he goes, of course, radio frequencies change. You know, West Covina is a small department, so they have their own radio frequencies, unlike LAPD or the CHP that would take over this pursuit. But it's going to be confusing at its termination to make sure that the officers understand which car is being pursued, because they're used to seeing a plain car being pursued by police officers, not a police car being pursued by police officers.
Have you ever heard of another case such as this one?
No, I haven't. But here's the other caveat to this, is that because of the recent terrorist activities, because of terrorist cells, officers have to be very aware what they're being led into by this individual, because we have no idea why he stole the car and where he's taking the officers. So along with just the normal thinking of a stolen vehicle, they also have to be very cautious when this guy stops, when he gets off. Is he leading officers into some type of ambush by doing this?
Right, and you make a good point. I mean, earlier today we were reporting on this young officer, I think 29 years old, who was ambushed. So everyone's antenna especially acute these days, because the potential danger to officers is so very high. So that's why the notion that this vehicle was stolen strikes me as extremely unusual, and that there must be a backstory that's going to be quite a tale.
I would imagine so.
But just to give you a better locator right now, we're told that this police vehicle has transitioned onto the northbound 170, so heading towards the North Hollywood area. And again, it is that first vehicle with the lights on that we are watching. There, you will see as Skyfox pulls out a little bit, eventually you will notice that there is a second vehicle behind, and we don't know, perhaps there are even more. But at this point, Sergeant, would we not see other law enforcement agencies get involved, the CHP or LAPD?
Yes, you would. Now, the pursuing unit has to give over that authority. They have to relinquish the authority to the other agencies. If they want to continue the pursuit, if they want to hold authority, they are in every right to do that, depending on their policies of pursuits. But what you will have is agencies getting involved in this and following and assisting the pursuing unit, also paralleling the pursuit as much as they can. If they can stop traffic, if they can anticipate where he's going to get off. These are the following agencies and involved agencies will try to do.
Now, if it turns out that West Covina police know who's in that vehicle, they would be able to access some information, correct? Like, so say they arrested somebody, they would have had some information on identity before this all took place, before he was able to somehow get a hold of this vehicle and take off.
They would. They would have a lot of information on them. They may even have a cell phone number on them. They might try to communicate with them. They may have been trying to communicate with them over the police radio and try to, solve this strictly by communications and defuse the situation. Obviously, that hasn't happened, and this guy is, making his 15 minutes of fame or some type of point by doing this, because there's no way that he's not going to get caught.
Well, if these stories that we were hearing earlier are accurate, where he was screaming at the radio and it would seem to indicate that he was agitated in some way, would it be too early at this point to bring in a crisis negotiator and to try to communicate with him?
No, I mean, it's never too early or too late to try to do that. Communications is always one of your best weapons with any situation, but whether he's going to talk or not, and whether they have communication with that particular car, because these are all done on antennas, and they would have to communicate with them now through the air unit. The air unit may not have the capability as a crisis negotiator. They may be able to talk to that unit, but if it's West Covina, they're probably, West Covina itself has long lost communication with this vehicle.
You may notice every once in a while you see that spotlight that's from the sun gun that comes from the police helicopter. And so they're fully aware of where that vehicle is and keeping a close eye on it. But an odd situation, to say the very least, to think that you've got two police vehicles there with the lights on. We don't know if the sirens are on as well, but the lights on at the very least. And it is the first vehicle that is the subject of the pursuit. At this point, we're told that now the vehicle has exited the 170 freeway and is on the West Sherman Way off-ramp. And as we keep an eye on what happens next, now that the car has gone through a parking lot in order to make a turn.
So that's a major boulevard in the North San Fernando Valley. These are large, expansive areas in which people can drive. But it would be quite shocking on a Sunday evening at 10:22 to see a black and white leading other black and whites in hot pursuit and driving in an erratic fashion at high speeds. But this is what we find at this hour on a Sunday evening. And as we've been reporting since the top of this broadcast, according to authorities, this was a police vehicle that was stolen from West Covina. The person in that car, we don't know too much about this person, but the sense is that there is possibly a weapon inside of that vehicle, also protective gear. And these, of course, would make it very difficult to apprehend this person at the point when authorities need to do it. The whole indication of this evening is that they would like this to end on a safe note, which is what the objective always is for law enforcement.
Okay, here's an update on the location. So apparently the vehicle is now heading southbound on Whitsett, going freeway speed, so going at a high rate of speed, considering that these are surface streets that the car is traveling on. This is also, by the way, near the Bob Hope Airport, if you want to get your bearings as to where this chase has gone. So we've been through Almonte and West Covina and Alhambra and Rosemead, San Gabriel Valley, and now in the San Fernando Valley and going southbound, we're told, on Whitsett. We did see that vehicle, by the way, make sort of an interesting cut through a corner parking lot.
It would seem to me that he's trying to find now a familiar area, some place that he either grew up in or he's familiar with, so that he can ditch this vehicle and try to get into a location where he feels safe. And that's where the LAPD is going to parallel this pursuit. They're going to try to contain him, set up a perimeter as soon as they can. And that was where the information on the suspect is very helpful, is that where does he live? Does he have any relatives out in the valley? Does he know the valley? Was he raised out there? The more they can glean from what they know from him already, the better they can set up on a particular location that they feel he might be going to.
All right.
Are you noticing any difference in how he's driving or anything at this time, Michael?
Well, he seems to know where he's going. I mean, his turns aren't hesitated. He's going at a high rate of speed down through areas that he seems very familiar with. So I would think that he's trying to get to a location that he can get out and try to run or try to hide in.
But that being said, the updated information is he's now back on the 170, but going now southbound. So back the way he came in the first place, as we keep an eye on this vehicle, going at a high rate of speed for sure. Can you tell? Is there some magic way to tell how fast this vehicle is going?
Well, I mean, he's passing those other cars. If they're going, 65, 70 miles an hour, he's at least doing 85 or 90.
So now he's headed south on the 101, we would assume back towards downtown Los Angeles, and basically is going in a loop, and this is not unusual where we see these suspects going round and round, and as Michael was pointing out, going into areas where they feel comfortable, going into areas where they know the road, and maybe looking for a good opportunity to pull off and even have a foot bail here. So, Michael, at this point, how many different factions of law enforcement would be involved?
Well, you have the initial pursuing city. You have the city where the vehicle was stolen from. Then you have the CHP. You have the LAPD that they're in the jurisdiction of now. So you have several different agencies. Plus, you have the air unit, whoever the air unit is from. It could be the CHP helicopter, sheriff's helicopter, or LAPD.
I believe it's the sheriff's helicopter, and there's actually two of them up above this vehicle. Right.
So you got several communication issues when you deal with that many agencies.
Good, better, or bad, worse there?
Well, it's worse because you'd like to have everybody on one frequency, everybody communicating and talking and knowing the same thing, but that doesn't necessarily always come true. They do have tactical frequencies that are far-reaching, and other smaller departments can communicate through them. LAPD and the CHP and the sheriffs all can go over to one common frequency, but not so much with the smaller departments.
Yeah, that is an interesting point. Again, with this West Covina police vehicle being pursued by various agencies, but the initial pursuit was by West Covina police, following one of their own vehicles.
I sure wish we could get more information about what happened when the vehicle was stolen, because I think it would shed light more on what's happening at this hour with the suspect. Because we don't know if he was formally being booked. We really don't know much about the person behind the wheel, except that he's been driving in a very erratic fashion, has taken a number of freeways here in Southern California, and seems to be looping back where he started,
and
now headed south on the 101.
I mean, to be sure, we don't even know if this was a situation where he was already in the vehicle being arrested. We don't know that for sure. Could it be someone that, for whatever reason, I mean, we mentioned the fact that over the police scanners they heard somebody screaming. Was he in this state which allowed him to do something that is unthinkable, but steal a police vehicle? So we just don't know.
You don't know where it initiated from. I mean, did he take down the officers and take their keys from them? Did he get the keys from them? Did they leave the keys in the car absentmindedly? There could be a plethora of reasons how he got into this car and took it, but one of the big issues is that he's got a very large disregard for human safety based on the speeds that he's driving at and weaving in and out of traffic. The other problem that's a negative with him going code 3, red lights and sirens, is that by policy and by the penal code, people pull to their right when they see a police vehicle coming. And police vehicles, by policy, don't pass to the right of cars, because if somebody sees them, they're going to pull to the right, and you can cause a traffic accident that way. And he's weaving in and out of traffic, so the likelihood of somebody just panicking and pulling to the right as he's passing to the right is very high.
That's a very good point, because it's not protocol. Because, of course, he's not really a law enforcement officer.
Yeah, no one on the freeway knows what's going on. Right. All they see are two vehicles going at a high rate of speed. They have no idea, knowing that the guy in the first vehicle is actually wanted for stealing that vehicle.
Do we have any indication of where he is now? Hollywood Boulevard, he's getting off at right there.
So heading into Hollywood on surface streets, slowing down because of the traffic. that was almost an example of what you were talking about, Sergeant, because it was unclear where that vehicle was going to go. And if it had gone more to the right, that could have been a situation where the people in front of him, the drivers in front, would have gone to the right too, and that could have caused an extra little problem there.
And of course, Hollywood is an area here in Southern California where people stay up very late. Yep. They're out at night, they walk, they drive, so we have to really hope that this ends in a fashion that's peaceful.
Yeah, and the danger when he gets on surface streets increases tremendously. I mean, everything from animals to pedestrians to cross traffic like he's hitting now. It's just tremendous. And more officers are killed in traffic-related accidents than even in, violent confrontations with suspects. So the officers are on high alert when they're doing this.
It doesn't seem like he's slowed down much.
No, not at all.
These are narrow streets, so he's now left, the major boulevard of Hollywood Boulevard and has gone onto one of these smaller, older streets where you really can't drive that quickly. But there he goes as we watch him weave his way through the streets in Hollywood. Now it seems as if it's a more major street. We're told this is East Franklin, so that's a fairly major thoroughfare. Now speeding up once again as we watch him go through these lights and with the lights and sirens. So again, that is, if we're going to look for the silver lining, that is a bit of a silver lining because hopefully people will get out of the way. But at one point I did see on the corner there were a lot of people waiting to cross the street. So
well, Franklin, of course, is a neighborhood. I mean, this is where families live and young hipsters and the whole scene that you see in Hollywood. So you have to be very careful here. It seems to be slowing down a little bit.
Making another left-hand turn, again onto a more narrow street than Franklin, certainly.
Do we have any indication of where he is now, Ellen?
Slowing. And then speeding right back up again. Hard to see if there's a lot of traffic.
Yeah, plus these streets aren't well lit, so his, ability to see anybody getting in and out, walking across the street is very bad.
Well, we're hearing, Michael, that he's in the Hollywood Hills, and anyone who knows Southern California, those are very narrow streets. Ooh, especially if he starts actually going up, it'll be difficult to traverse that area. Right now, what is the best course of action for these black and whites that are in pursuit of the stolen black and white?
Well, if they can get cars ahead of them, they can try to box them in. He's going through fast in these neighborhoods for them to try to pull a pit maneuver because he's not even slowing down. They've got to be going, less than 35 miles an hour to do that pit maneuver properly. So if they can get somebody ahead of him possibly and box them in, that would be the best alternative.
Mm-hmm. All right, we're told now going eastbound on Los Feliz. So again, this is like the Griffith Park area, Los Feliz, where there's a lot of restaurants and whatnot on that street itself.
And where young Hollywood lives. They're up late on a Sunday night. If you stay on Los Feliz and you continue to go east, it'll take you to the 5 if they go that far. When we picked him up, part of the time he was on the 5, so it'll be interesting to see what his history is in this area. Does he know how to get through that area of Hollywood and then get downtown again? But, authorities have their work cut out for them this evening as they are in pursuit of this stolen police cruiser out of West Covina PD. We still do not know the details of how this occurred, Susan. We've been speculating on it. Some people thought perhaps he was being booked and was able to steal that car. We really don't know that. And I think once we get that backstory, it'll shed light more about this suspect.
Yeah, what would your advice be at this point, Sergeant?
Well, I mean, you gotta, depending on the charge of the crime, he's stolen a police vehicle. You got to stay with him, and you got to be very careful of his disregard for human life. And you got to try to terminate this pursuit as best you can with that in mind, and with his safety in mind too. If they can get close enough to do a pit maneuver, that would be good. If they could box him in, that would even be better. But based on his demeanor, that doesn't mean that he's going to stop. He could try to ram one of the police vehicles or even try to take his own life, by suicide by cop, by trying to get out and pretend like he's got a gun or whatever.
Okay, in Atwater Village now. Now, at what point or in what scenario would police give up on this pursuit, or at least pull back?
That would just kind of depend on again, the policy of the pursuing agency. LAPD has a different pursuit policy than the sheriff, than the CHP, than West Covina, than Culver City. So it depends on the policy of the pursuing vehicle, of the pursuing agency. It may be that this individual has committed such egregious crime that they're not going to give up on the pursuit, and they're going to continue it till its fruition.
Well, Michael, I would think, we're told now that he's north on Central in the city of Glendale, that they would not give up on this pursuit for a couple of reasons. These are just my observations. But it takes somebody who's really amped up on something or total disregard for the law to steal a police cruiser. I mean, that's really kind of thumbing your nose at the authorities. And then to be driving at these particular rate of speed, I would think that would be kind of the last course of action, that they would give up on this pursuit.
Yeah, they really don't have any choice. This guy has totally compromised that agency and other agencies around, because you don't want him to take that police vehicle into, his own environment, strip it, get the radio, get everything that's out of it. You don't know if he's still got a cell phone, if he's in communication with anybody else on the ground that he could go to that would help him out with that. So, yeah, terminating a pursuit like this is pretty much somewhat out of the question.
Well, they could just watch it from up above, I suppose. They could try to do that and just pull back a little bit in hopes maybe that the vehicle would not go as fast. As we notice that there are now two, or we are able to see that there are two vehicles following this stolen police cruiser.
How close are they? I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, they could do that. They could strictly follow with the airships. They could back off, hoping that he would slow down and calm down. But based on the way he's been driving, based on the cars in code tree, configuration, it's just, I don't think they're going to get that kind of reaction from him. That's what you usually do when you try to back off. You try to calm somebody down. Mm-hmm. Just follow them with the airship so that they don't really feel the pressure from the police officers.
Now, I happened to notice that the vehicle went through a red light. Normally, that would be one thing to point out and point out how lawless this person is. But in this situation, with the lights and sirens on, you got to hope that that's enough to keep people out of the intersection. Okay, we're watching as one of the cars is getting rather close to the pursued vehicle.
Now, see, he's going there at a speed where there could be a pit maneuver, but he's got to be able to get around him, and it doesn't seem like the individuals are allowing the officers to get in that configuration.
The last locator we had was Central in Glendale, and that would be the heart of Glendale. So, fortunately, there don't seem to be that many cars on these surface streets at this hour.
Yeah, it seems as if the vehicle is driving around in circles, and then again, now we're in a situation, we got to watch this now. Mm-hmm. Tries the pit.
Flipped around.
Now
the other vehicles will lock him in. So this is some kind of parking lot.
Oh, it's leaving again.
Backing up. So he's now in reverse.
Here we go again. Right. Okay, we just saw a helicopter go ahead. This is always the most dangerous part of this, but they don't know if he's got a weapon in that car. So this is highly dangerous situation.
A weapon, a bulletproof vest. So it was interesting to see that vehicle really ram the pursued vehicle. Now you see all this steam and smoke from the engine after the collision. The car seems to be stopped. We've got officers out of the vehicles now, but they will be approaching this car with a lot of trepidation, a lot of caution.
Michael, what will the next step be from here?
Well, now they've got to get him out of the vehicle. They've got to get him out of it, depending on how badly he's hurt. If he's hurt in that collision, then getting him to come out and cooperate is going to be another challenge. But they've got to get him to come out the passenger side, obviously, because he can't get out the driver's side. So their whole tactical configuration has to change. And they have to put officers in position to see him, because if he gets out the other side, he gets out their blind side. The other thing with the air unit, with the bright lights of the air unit and things, is that officers many times will lose their night vision because of the bright light coming on and going off. Also because of the police light bars that are going on. It's real hard to keep your night vision because they're so bright. But they've got to now work around that vehicle and get him out the passenger side.
Yeah, well, that vehicle that hit the pursued vehicle hit at a pretty, it was a pretty solid hit. And as you can see, all that steam and smoke coming from, I believe, the
disabled car. Mm-hmm.
And maybe both cars. Also, I happen to notice some liquid underneath the vehicle, which could be of some concern, wouldn't it be? That it could be the gas coming out of the tank? Is that possible?
Not likely. The steam is probably from the radiator of the police vehicle, because it was probably overheated at the speeds that they were going at. So when he rammed that other police vehicle, that's probably all water and coolant from the radiator. And that was what would cause the steam. It wasn't really smoke like from fire, but more from steam.
And Michael, it looked like it was hit by at least two vehicles that were in pursuit. And we're hearing in our ear right now, too, that the driver's side of the stolen vehicle, it took a hard impact. So it's pretty much concave there on the driver's side.
It's hard to see, but it is a good indentation there, more than an indentation. Just as you mentioned, there's no way he's going to get out that side of the vehicle. He's got to come out the other side.
And it depends. See, it looks like a wall that they rammed him up against. So it depends, again, on whether the passenger side of the vehicle, the front passenger side, it could also be locked closed because it's jammed up against the wall there. So they have to get him to climb over the seat to get out, or they're going to have him climb through a window or something, because they still have to get him out of there to get him into custody.
And as you just pointed out, we don't know. He could be injured. As you know, the evidence of the door on this police car suggests that the car that hit him hard. Needed to get him to stop.
And Michael, it seemed like it was a two-pronged strategy. They were trying to disable the car and also sort of surround him, because the way it hit, there wouldn't be much place for him to run.
Right. Yeah, I mean, they're trying to contain him, again, based on his disregard for human safety, based on his disregard for his own safety and for the officers. There was time that this thing had to come to an end, and that's what they did. That's the decision that they must have called for West Covina or whatever, because I think that top car that first rammed him was West Covina. And now what they got to do is they have to approach the car, see his condition, and find out how they can best get him out of there. But by doing that, they put themselves in harm's way, because they don't know if he's conscious, unconscious, armed, not armed. So, they may just have to kind of wait until they can get some type of communication set up with him.
You see the police officers approaching the passenger side of the car. They've got guns drawn. They're going to take a look at the condition of the driver inside. Now, as far as we know, there was just this one guy in there, but they've got guns and flashlights taking a look at the situation. Can you tell anything from the posture of the police officers?
Well, because they all came around the car, they all lit it up. They're trying to find out his condition now, because they formed a tactical team. They approached the car properly. The lead officer, taking a higher stance than the other officers. Well, now you can see they're more relaxed. They're putting their flashlights away. So now they're just trying to figure out the condition of the of the suspect, and how now to get him out of there. But they're much more relaxed. So he must be unconscious, or he must be injured to the point where they don't feel threatened.
The biggest difficulty would just be the darkness, right? Trying to look inside the vehicle, ascertain what his condition is, and what the next step is from here.
Right, and that's why they form a tactical team like that. 5 or 6 officers that approach. They have UPRs, they have shotguns, their guns are drawn. They're ready for the worst, obviously, and then it's escalation, de-escalation. They escalate it to where they think they may have to use deadly force approaching the vehicle, and then as soon as they saw his condition, looked into the car, they could de-escalate it, and now it looks like more of a, just trying to get him out of there, as opposed to taking a violent suspect into custody.
Okay, if you're just joining us now here at 1045, we've been paying attention. We've been watching since the beginning of our newscast a police pursuit, a most unusual police pursuit, because it turns out that they were pursuing a West Covina police vehicle that was stolen. So this is the end of the pursuit, but at the start of the pursuit, we've heard about how the car went. Oh, we're taking a look at the way this pursuit ended. So this is the vehicle in the front had stopped in this alley, got pit maneuvered. Other vehicles, they thought, pinned him in, but then eventually you'll watch as the police vehicle goes in reverse.
The stolen police vehicle.
This is the stolen police vehicle trying to get out of the way, but his freedom did not last long, and that was a pretty good hit by the West Covina PD
right
vehicle.
there, and then enclosed. So at this point, we were able to see and to hear that the suspect's side of the car was hit very hard. So authorities at this hour are trying to figure out the condition. We're back and decide what the next move is. But this could have been so very dangerous. It could have ended in not a peaceful fashion like what we're seeing right now. We don't know the condition of the suspect, but literally driving at speeds of 70 miles per hour in an erratic fashion, going through a number of freeways in Southern California, including the 101, the 170, the 5, and then whipping around and coming back. We are now in the city of Glendale. That's where this ended.
Okay, so at this point, we can tell you this is a successful end of a police pursuit in that they now have the vehicle contained. The suspect is inside, and as we mentioned as we heard from the retired sergeant, just the way the police officers are acting around the vehicle, they're pretty sure that the danger has been diffused.
But important to note that this was a stolen police vehicle,